The cold weather was tearing at the skin and flesh, and zombies were popping out like mushrooms after the rain. The city I lived in was suddenly in chaos like a broken beehive. Meanwhile, I was leisurely in my secret base, sipping on spicy and sour Thai hot pot, eating until my tongue was numb. It was the best thing in the world. I thought I would live peacefully like that day and month. But who would have thought that my damn best friend would suddenly act like a good person? Not only did she drag her entire family to my base, but she also wanted to save the infected people outside the door. When I flatly refused, she started crying and whining, pointing at me and screaming, "Jessica, there are so many people out there in trouble, how can you be so cruel?" And so, with her innocent and hypocritical label, she was praised by everyone as a goddess, while I, the evil woman, was brutally bitten by the infected people on the street. When I opened my eyes, I had returned to before the apocalypse. This time I must destroy this green tea best friend. On the third day after being reborn, I saw a familiar figure downstairs in the company as usual. I still couldn't help but smirk. It was my precious best friend, Snowy. She had blocked me for 3 days. It seemed like it was time to put on a show with her. "Jessica, what have you been busy with these days? I haven't seen you anywhere." Seeing me appear, Jessica flew straight into my arms like a chirping sparrow. I grabbed her soft arm, lowered my eyes and smiled meaningfully. In my previous life, I went to look for Snowy, probably around this time, but since I was reborn, I haven't made any movements on the outside. It seems like someone is getting impatient. I've been working overtime these past few days. I smiled, but not smiling, took a few steps back, and brushed off the dust on the clothes I pushed away. Snowy then examined my face carefully. Only when she saw the dark circles under my eyes, they were those of a real panda. Then she breathed a sigh of relief. "Jessica, haven't you been sleeping well lately? Have you had nightmares?" She pursed her lips tightly, anxiously holding my hand, her palms drenched in sweat, betraying her tension. Nightmare, apocalypse, a cold wind blew past, my skin was covered in thick goosebumps. These past few days, Snowy had been looking for me like crazy. Messages kept coming, I had long suspected. Now I finally had an answer. Snowy had come back to life, the fun was starting to build. But if the real culprit had lost his memory, how could I get revenge to my satisfaction? I was so tired that when I got home, I just lay down and slept like a log, without any dreams. I innocently opened my eyes and looked at it with a puzzled expression. Sure enough, Snowy's smile froze, first in disbelief, then in a frown. He moved his lips to say something, but then swallowed it back. "Ah, Jessica, I still have some work to do, I'll go first." He forced a smile and turned to leave. I didn't know if he believed me or not, just standing there. His expression was pensive, watching his hurried back, still the same hypocritical demeanor as before. In my previous life, before I died, I found out. It turned out that he had always coveted the supplies in my base. I could also guess Snowy's intentions to some extent. I drove the company car, an old, unremarkable commercial vehicle, and followed Snowy closely. Sure enough, just as I had predicted, he was going crazy buying supplies, hundreds of kilograms of rice, dry food, meat, and gasoline. He even ordered solar panels and generators. He was following my base construction list from my previous life exactly. Stockpiling everything. Snowy had no money, he swiped his credit card mercilessly. He even borrowed money at high interest rates. I sat in the car and watched the drama or secretly laughed at his naivety. Firstly, he was shopping so lavishly and even filled in his real address on the order form, which was like harming himself, shouting out loud to the enemy that I was here. Secondly, the solar panels were on the list. Their glass would reflect light during the day, making them extremely easy to spot. My base was also found because of that in my previous life, causing a lot of drama. But at that time, Snowy was busy entertaining relatives, so he didn't have the mind to pay attention to these trivial matters. Third, the loan sharks were very urgent. It was unlikely that he would last until the end of the world. Outside the window, the cold wind was blowing, and tiny snowflakes were starting to fall. Looking at Snowy, who was busy in the wholesale market, I smiled brightly and immediately rushed off. Snowy was busy, and I was not free at all. I used fake information, added a large warehouse in the suburbs and a truck. Every day, I had to wait until midnight to go out to move supplies. This time, I chose a different base address. A safer location at the foot of the mountain, a very ordinary-looking bungalow. Bulletproof doors, bulletproof glass, reinforced fences with electric grids. I did not do all these solid defenses. Because making such a big fuss, wouldn't it be shouting to the world that there are people here? The bungalow was just a disguise. The real base was underground, an absolutely dark basement that could not be detected. I dug a very long tunnel. The tunnel led to an abandoned underground fortress from the war, which was easy to scout, had a very high defense coefficient, vacuum-packed rice, cereals, compressed biscuits. These long-lived foods took up most of the space. I had stocked up on a large amount of purified water and also discovered a source of potable underground water nearby. Pots and pans, warm clothes, and other daily necessities. I had bought enough to last for a decade. Generators, charcoal, freezers, heaters, medicines, and other magnetic items were also stocked at full capacity. Finally, I installed microcameras along the 3 kilometers road near the bungalow. In order to monitor the situation, everything was going very smoothly. After finishing everything, I sneaked back home before dawn. Tired but extremely satisfied, I collapsed on the bed. There were still 5 days until the end of the world. I hadn't slept for long when Snowy came to the door. He was banging on the door loudly. When I opened the door, he held my hand with tears in his eyes. "Jessica, can you lend me some money? Did something happen?" Two raised my hand to block it from entering the house. I pretended to care and hugged it. I had already cleaned out the furniture in the house and sold it at the flea market for money. If it saw me, it would be a disaster. Luckily, Snowy didn't ask to come into the house. He just stood there and cried, saying that his father was hospitalized and needed 20,000. He begged me to save his father. I didn't want to waste time with him. I interrupted Snowy decisively. "I'll give you 50,000. He looked at me in shock. Tears were still threatening to fall from the corners of his eyes. "Jessica, I knew you were the best." Snowy hugged me emotionally. It was as if she wasn't the evil woman in her previous life. I hid the coldness in my eyes and patted her shoulder. "My water pipe is leaking. Last time I heard you say that your neighbor specializes in plumbing. Can I have his contact number?" Afraid that I would change my mind, Snowy took the bank card and immediately sent me the neighbor's phone number. He didn't even bother to pretend to talk about this and that and hurriedly left. I held the phone and looked at the 2 big words "Windy" on the screen. In his previous life, Snowy, despite my objections, insisted on bringing all his neighbors and relatives to my base to depend on me. Windy was one of them. He said he was a plumber, but Snowy probably didn't know. In fact, he was a powerful arms dealer in both the underworld and the upper class. The world was full of zombies, weapons were the most important thing. This guy's value to me was much greater than 50,000. The person who came to meet me in the alley in the middle of the night wasn't Windy. Under the dim streetlight, the man was wearing a black reptile suit, his eyebrows were sharp. He was holding a wooden box, coldly glancing at me. "Gangsters, is this dressing too ostentatious?" The 2 of them looked at each other without saying a word. After a long silence, I threw the money bag over. The man then pulled out the custom-made long sword inside. "Give me the blade from its sheath," making a crisp sound of cutting through the air. I wonder if it's as sweet as cutting vegetables when attacking zombies? I fondled the sword for a long time before raising my head and asking sincerely, "Is this watermelon cut sweet, brother?" The man's eyes were complicated. The hand that was counting the money paused for a moment. He frowned, his eyes revealing a bit of irritation. Not far away, a few strange noises suddenly rang out in the alley. I turned my head and said goodbye to him and quickly left. If I didn't hear wrong, it was the sound of a zombie. After parting with the man in black, I drove the rented off-road vehicle out. I only carried a little fresh food in the car. After lying in ambush at the gas station for 2 days, I finally caught Snowy. A large bus drove over. The bus was packed with people and loaded with supplies. The first person to get off the bus was Snowy. He smiled brightly under the protection of everyone. I didn't need to guess to know. He was taking relatives and neighbors to the base for refuge. I pretended to be surprised and went forward to hug him. "Snowy, what a coincidence. Jessica, why are you here?" Seeing me, the smile on his face almost disappeared. He tried to hide his unnatural expression, glancing at my car without hiding. "The company organized a camping trip in the suburbs. I'm going to the meeting point." "Are you guys going on a trip? In front of so many people?" I calmly opened the trunk of the off-road vehicle. Inside were only a few simple tools, a little food, completely unlike going to a refugee camp. Snowy secretly breathed a sigh of relief, clearing all doubts. He was about to say something to cover up when a neighbor lady next door quickly reminded him. Oh my God, what trip? Snowy said the end of the world was coming, he was going to take us to escape. Snowy is really kind. Little girl, you should come with us too. Snowy, is what he said true? I held his hand tightly in fear, not missing any expression on his face. Seeing the secret he had worked so hard to hide being exposed by someone else, Snowy's face darkened, but he didn't dare to get angry with his aunt. He had to hold back his anger and reluctantly nodded. Jessica, don't be angry. I originally wanted to find you immediately, but for everyone's safety, I didn't have time. He pursed his lips and lowered his head, not daring to look at me. It looked like he was blaming me but couldn't refute. Sure enough, the people around him immediately looked at me with suspicious eyes. I stood quietly by his side and watched him act. Before anyone could react, I frowned and grabbed his hand. Why do you think that? You've saved so many people. I can't even be happy, let alone when times are tough. Everyone should work together to overcome it. Snowy raised his head in surprise. He didn't expect me to react like that, but I just calmly looked straight at him. In my previous life, because I was worried about limited supplies and the unpredictability of human hearts in the apocalypse, I strongly opposed it taking a group of people with it, but was scolded by it as a cold-blooded and cruel person, and also earned the hatred of everyone. Now that I agreed so easily, no wonder he didn't believe me. I used to learn martial arts, I will definitely protect everyone with you. I took advantage of the victory, continued to learn from him, and built a gentle image of saving people. Sure enough, as soon as I finished speaking, everyone burst into laughter. I even vaguely heard someone in the crowd complimenting me for being both beautiful and kind. Snowy had no choice but to force himself to smile and invite me on my way. It's just that this smile looked a bit unsightly. Before getting in the car, I glanced around the crowd, my eyes stopping on the face of a scarred man in the corner. The scarred man glared at me fiercely. Don't judge a person's character by his face. I saw him alone and pitiful on the street, so I picked him up, I won't abandon him. Snowy immediately stood in front of him and looked at me with a reasonable expression. His small face tensed up. I raised my eyebrows, my expression slightly amused. It seems that Snowy's saintly heart can't be held back anymore after the apocalypse. Very well, take it with you. I smiled, ignoring his reaction, turned around and got in the car. Well, I'll just pretend I don't know. That scarred guy is a loan shark's henchman who came to collect his debt, or he's just inviting a wolf into his house. After all, it's not my house. Snowy's base is set up exactly like mine in my previous life, even better. Supplies were piled up from the second floor all the way to the main door. His relatives and neighbors looked on with shining eyes, surrounding him with endless praise. Snowy scratched his head a little embarrassedly. Snowy, the young ladies are old. The rooms on the second floor are spacious and safe, let them stay there. I leaned against the railing of the stairs and loudly suggested. One of the rooms on the second floor belonged to Snowy, and was decorated extremely delicately and beautifully. The uncles and aunts looked at Snowy with expectant eyes. After he nodded, they hurried upstairs. Following my instructions, they quickly occupied all the empty rooms. Then they gratefully patted my head, saying that I was a good child. Snowy quietly sat on the sofa downstairs, only his hands were tightly clutching the fabric, almost wanting to tear it apart. Snowy, let's sleep in the living room. We haven't talked for a long time. After arranging for everyone, I happily went downstairs. Looking at her slightly distorted expression, it was really pleasing to the eye. So it turned out that being a holy mother was so wonderful. When I entered the kitchen, I took out all the precious ingredients that Snowy had hidden away. I took them all out under the pretext of nourishing everyone. The aunties lit the fire and cooked very enthusiastically. When it came to mealtime, only Snowy and his family had no appetite. Snowy's mother looked at me devouring an abalone and couldn't help but want to speak up. Snowy tugged on her sleeve to stop her, but her expression didn't improve much. It wasn't hard to see the regret. Was it already regretful? What about you guys using my supplies at my base before? Now it's just a case of using your own petard to beat your own back. According to the apocalyptic movie motif of Sleepless, the female lead like me is still kind. Sorry Snowy, last time you said that my uncle was sick, I gave you all my savings. I've been saving money these past few days. Today I couldn't help but eat a few more bites. After saying that, I pretended to lower my head in shame. Tears suddenly welled up in my eyes, and the food I had just picked up was shakily put down. I hurriedly ate a few bites of white rice. The lively atmosphere in the dining room suddenly disappeared. The talking stopped. Everyone's eyes swept past Lou's mother, who was cold all over, and then fell on Snowy. The elders were all cunning foxes, and immediately understood the problem. They all guessed that Snowy had cheated me out of money to buy supplies. Immediately, everyone's impression of me improved a bit. So what if I ate a few bites? Wasn't it someone else's money? That's right, Jessica was too kind, so she was bullied. Under the teasing and whispering, Snowy's face gradually turned pale. She panicked and explained, her eyes brimming with tears. When the atmosphere had just calmed down, I put down the bowl, made an excuse to check the surrounding security risks, and went out. As I closed the door, I saw Snowy's hateful gaze directed at me. My dear friend, what should I do now? Returning to the off-road vehicle, I took out a small toolbox from a hidden corner in the back cup, taking advantage of the moment when no one was paying attention. Around here, I installed oil-tight cameras with no blind spots. One of them pointed straight at the main door of the base. If I remember correctly, the person I was waiting for had appeared. Early in the morning, the base heard a knock on the door. Everyone looked through the video door and saw clearly the scene outside. A weak blonde man collapsed in front of the door, his hand wrapped in a torn cloth, his eyes were hazy, and he was panting. Obviously, he was bitten by a zombie. In less than 2 hours, he would turn into a zombie. No one knew that this blonde man was actually the younger brother of a big boss. In the safe post-apocalyptic base, except for me and Snowy in his previous life insisted on me saving people. Intending to drag him into the house, for everyone's safety, I coldly refused and then buried the seeds of my own death. Someone is injured, let's go save him. Without waiting for Snowy to react, I anxiously went downstairs first. Seeing that I was about to open the door, Snowy's expression immediately changed. He rushed down and forcefully pushed my hand away. The old ladies, with their weak hearts, were also easily swayed. Snowy not only acted as a saint, but also brainwashed his entire family. Seeing that he refused to open the door, his mother felt humiliated under everyone's critical gazes and immediately became angry. Snowy, what's wrong with you? Open the door. I know you're not that kind of cold-blooded and cruel person, being criticized for no reason. Snowy secretly glared at me, gritting her teeth and opening the door to let the blonde man half of his body in. His eyes were completely red, and his wound was oozing with a foul smell. Seeing that he was ripe, I secretly pulled out the sword on my back, wanting to settle this matter. Unexpectedly, the blonde man's incessant knocking on the door earlier attracted the zombies in the forest. Snowy and I stood very close to each other, in the blink of an eye, taking advantage of the blind spot from the entrance. Snowy pushed the blonde man out. The young man staggered back a few steps, falling into the middle of the zombies. Before he could stand up, he was swallowed by the zombies. Jessica, how could you push someone out? The base door immediately slammed shut. Snowy screamed, took a few steps back, and looked at me with a terrified expression. The incident happened so quickly that no one could see clearly that he was being yelled at like that. Everyone was stunned, looking at each other without saying a word. In the past 2 days, my gentle and kind image had been deeply ingrained in people's hearts. Most people were waiting for me to explain and did not believe Snowy's one-sided words. I did not do that. He lost his footing and fell out. Snowy, why did you say that? My face was pale, I was trembling and could not stand, tears were falling, I looked extremely innocent and weak, extremely pitiful. Jessica was a good child, there was no way she could have done such a thing. That's right, just now she was the one who took the initiative to live at the door to save people. Snowy, did you see wrongly? Don't blame others. His neighbors rushed to my side. An enthusiastic auntie even stepped forward to help me up. The wall collapsed and everyone pushed. Snowy bit her lip and started crying. In this situation, she had no choice but to change her words. Then it must have been because I was in such a hurry that I saw wrongly. It's okay, I forgive you. I smiled generously, and conveniently took a bottle of expensive wine from the wine cabinet to drink, under his gaze that seemed like he wanted to devour me. I pretended to be absent-minded and returned to my room. Just now, he pushed me. The angle he chose was very discreet, but in the position opposite the base, I had installed a camera, it could definitely be recorded clearly. The pain of being dealt with in the previous life. It was still clear. I touched my neck. In the darkness, I let out a cruel smile. The suffering I had endured was not to be missed. As for that blonde guy, the moment he became infected, he was destined to die. No one could save him. Just when everyone thought the storm had passed, and they could finally live peacefully in the base, Snowy's creditor came to the door, standing behind the debt collection team. It was the scarred man he kindly picked up on the road. Last night he sneaked away, and early this morning he brought people to the door. The people who came were all tall and strong, all carrying sticks and sharp knives. Snowy stood behind me in panic, helplessly begging me for help. If you owe money, then pay it. I don't have any money. Jessica, can you help me? Amidst the screaming outside, Snowy moved his lips a few times, turned his face away guiltily, and even cut off my hand, stuck his head out and said loudly, "My friend has money, I will pay you back, don't act rashly. Our boss has already targeted this base. All of you get out, use the house to pay off the debt." During the negotiation, the main door of the base was opened a crack, and a pile of supplies filled the hall, unable to be hidden even if you wanted to. Snowy was unwilling. He hesitated for a moment and slammed the door shut, then hurriedly ran to the main bridge to turn on the power grid switch. The loan sharks were immediately blocked outside, unable to approach. The leader was angered. He directly ordered someone to put the truck in gear. The huge truck crashed straight into the door. "If you don't hand over your house, you won't be able to survive today." The threat reached everyone's ears. Snowy originally intended to grit his teeth and endure it, but his relatives and neighbors were all scared to death. Seeing his resistance, they took the initiative to open the door. Just like in his previous life, they opened the door in front of the infected's family and pushed me out. I sneered and obediently went out with them. The base and all the supplies had been completely taken over by the loan sharks. Even my off-road vehicle parked outside was robbed by them. Snowy stood there silently sobbing, his face full of grievance. After crying for a long time, he wiped his tears, stood up, his eyes shining brightly as he declared, "Everyone, don't be sad. I know a safe base in the south. We can go there to take refuge." Under the shade of the trees, I secretly smiled. The older brother of the infected blonde man was the boss of that safe base. In the previous life, Snowy betrayed me to be protected by him. In this life, he was the one who pushed the blonde into the zombies. I wanted to see how he would get himself in front. "Jessica, our bus is full. Maybe you have to find a way to get to the safe base yourself." Snowy walked in front of me, looking at me with a condescending look. Their bus looked normal, so it wasn't damaged. I pretended to be panicked and grabbed his hand. No matter how he struggled, I wouldn't let go. "Don't leave me behind. If we squeeze together a little bit, we can still sit." "Sorry, Jessica. There are still supplies on the bus. Without supplies, everyone will starve. I have a responsibility to take care of them. I can't let everyone be in danger because of you." Snowy awkwardly removed my hand. His words were a little choked up. His relatives all turned their heads away at this moment, pretending not to hear anything, but they all tacitly agreed to leave me behind. I frowned awkwardly, but finally nodded in agreement. "Okay, you guys be careful on the road. I will come to the base safely to find you." Hearing me obediently agree, Snowy secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He looked at me longingly and quickly called his neighbors to get in the car. He sped away and disappeared. The sound of the engine grew further and further away. I turned back to look at the base one last time and then went down the mountain. I turned on the walkie-talkie in a hidden place at the foot of the mountain. Sean came to pick me up and take me back to the bungalow. He was still wearing a tight black outfit, but the distance and coldness in his eyes had completely disappeared. After the weapons transaction, we still kept in touch. "You just told me the base address. Aren't you afraid I'll trick you? Then I'll deal with you." I leaned back in my chair, slowly wiping the sword in my hand. The apocalypse she spoke of had really come. He sighed. He pedaled the bike to full speed. Before returning to the shelter, I carefully threw away all the communication devices on my body, threw them all away, then took Sean and stayed in that secret fortress. At first, I saw that he was valuable. Indeed, this guy not only had a good physique, could solo zombies, he also had extremely strong survival skills, obediently being a nanny without a single complaint. When Snowy came to the door, I was happily sitting on the sofa eating minced meat porridge with preserved egg cooked by Sean. The camera along the way had captured his figure. I immediately stood up, dragged Sean through the tunnel back to the level 4 house. I had known for a long time that Snowy had secretly installed a GPS on my phone. I didn't expect him to come so quickly. Jessica, I know you've come back to life too. He opened the door. Snowy banged on the door loudly, his face full of anger. I conveniently ruffled a few strands of hair so as not to look too happy. When I opened the door, I had an innocent and bewildered expression. Snowy, why are you here? What is this rebirth? I don't understand what you're talking about. As soon as he said that, Snowy pushed me away and rushed into the house. He sneered, intending to expose my true face. He shouted loudly, "Stop pretending. If you didn't come back to life, how could you hide so many things in the house?" He stopped talking halfway because the bungalow was empty, completely devoid of things like he said. I stood quietly to the side, watching his expression change constantly, unable to help but feel embarrassed for him. "Let's eat," Sean said as he carried a bowl of egg soup from the kitchen. His tall figure and outstanding appearance immediately attracted attention. Sure enough, Snowy wriggled and patted my hand, his face full of concern. "Jessica, who is this? Why are you hiding here with someone else?" I coldly pushed his hand away and calmly walked to the dining table. Under the gaze of the two of them, I leisurely drank the soup. He saved me on the way to escape. He also found this place. Seeing Snowy sneaking closer to Sean, I kindly explained. His eyes lit up, looking at me with a somewhat understanding gaze, very sensible. I stretched, pretending to be full and needing to go to the room to rest. I signaled for Sean to stay. Sean was reluctant, his face filled with grievance at being left alone. "Hello, I'm Snowy, may I ask, can I hide here for a while?" Snowy smiled shyly, politely and friendly, extending her hand to Sean. This move had always been effective on others, but unfortunately, it was not in this case. Moreover, he was now eating my food and drinking my food, and had no right to speak. Snowy's hand hung awkwardly in the air, being treated coldly. She couldn't help but blush, bit her lower lip, and hesitantly spoke. "Did Jessica say something to you?" I had no choice but to leave him behind at that time. The lives of more than 10 people were on my shoulders, it seems I deserved it. Bean-sized tears rolled down her fair face, looking weak and fragile, extremely pitiful. Sean still didn't react. He looked at the camera, quietly waiting for my instructions. After I nodded, he agreed. Snowy thought that her words had moved the other party, and couldn't help but feel a little happy. When Sean turned around and went back to his room, he relaxed, revealing a smug look. Unexpectedly, everything had entered my eyes. That night, a few zombies appeared around the bungalow. Screams echoed in the quiet night. Snowy was scared to death. He rushed into Sean's room in a panic, but saw no one. After everything calmed down, he looked at us walking in from outside in surprise. Sean followed me, carefully wiped the dirt off my sword blade. In the silence, Snowy sobbed softly. "Jessica, why did you run out too? Sean had to kill zombies, and he had to be distracted to protect you, it was so dangerous." His eyes were a bit resentful, clearly thinking that the one who actually held the sword to kill zombies was Sean. Sean just smiled and said nothing. Seeing that we were all indifferent, Snowy couldn't act anymore. He timidly spoke up and told me his real purpose in coming to me. "I waited for you at the safe base for a long time but didn't see you. I know someone with power there. Come with me to seek refuge there. The person with power in that safe house is the man who killed me. Snowy must have already reported me in this life." I raised my head, hiding the hatred in my eyes and telling myself not to go. It continued. "Are you still angry with me? If you don't go, then Sean, let's go together." It called Sean's name sweetly, approaching to grab his hand. Sean raised his eyebrows, nimbly avoiding it and said to it, "I'm not going either, I like the feeling of being protected by others." He put the clean sword in my hand and coldly replied. I patted his head with satisfaction, grinning. Snowy finally realized that he was fooled. He stared at me with hatred, his vicious eyes undisguised. The door of the bungalow was slammed shut. Suddenly, the sound of a car engine rang out. He actually dared to drive our car away. Is this why she deliberately left the keys in the car? The moonlight shone through the window. Sean sat down beside me, handed me a cup of tea. I took a few sips, and nodded calmly. That's right, otherwise how could someone like him have reached that base? Outside the window, a cold wind suddenly blew, the shadows of the trees swayed. I quietly enjoyed this scene, feeling refreshed in my heart. Come on, Snowy, let's go back to that day to end it all. At dawn, I woke up, leisurely ate the breakfast Sean made, and went out amidst the noise. There was a crowd of people outside. The man in a suit was in his 30s, his eyes were full of murderous intent, and the person hiding behind him was Snowy. There were a few familiar faces in the crowd, Snowy's relatives. Seeing my figure, he walked out from behind the man. In front of everyone, he cried and blamed me again, just like in his previous life. Sorry, Jessica, I originally intended to help you cover it up, but he really worked hard to find his brother. I couldn't bear to deceive him. His cries were intermittent. The man painfully hugged him. Snowy tried to suppress his disgust and continued to accuse, if it weren't for you cruelly pushing the blonde brother out, he wouldn't have been eaten by zombies. He was only in his teens, still a child, it was all my fault, I should have risked my life to stop you. Lying in the man's arms, it was so heartbroken that it was about to faint. The man caressed its hand and softly coaxed, tell it not to blame itself. In the crowd, Snowy's relatives who had once believed and supported me also stood up. They acted righteously, indignantly testifying to its words. I shook my head helplessly. Humanity is indeed not trustworthy. The man was furious. He stared at me, raised the big knife in his hand, and the surrounding thugs also surrounded me at the same time. Sean suddenly pulled out a weapon from behind his back and blocked me. The group's footsteps were clearly a little hesitant. Wait, I smiled and pushed Sean away. Bravely walked in front of the man and opened the video I had prepared in my phone. When I saw the content clearly, Snowy immediately collapsed to the ground, his face pale, looking at me in surprise, his mouth constantly muttering, "How is this possible? How did you get it?" The video clearly recorded the scene of him pushing the hairy man and falling to the ground, then slamming the door shut. He saw his younger brother being eaten with his own eyes. The veins on the man's neck were clearly visible. He had a creepy smile on his face and walked over to Snowy and kicked him to the ground. "You dare to lie to me? I didn't do that, sir. That video was fake. He framed me." Snowy still wouldn't give up, trying to deny his crime, pouring dirty water on me, but was kicked hard in the face by the man. Everyone present was stunned. No one dared to intervene. Snowy looked at me with tears in her eyes, pleading, "Jessica, save me." It was obvious that you wouldn't open the door. His mind was in chaos. His memories and his previous life blurred together. I just stood quietly in the distance, solemnly repeating what he said in his previous life. "This is all your karma. If you had been a little kinder at the beginning, it would have been fine." Hearing this, Snowy's eyes immediately became clear again. It struggled violently, desperately crawling towards me. "Jessica, you really came back to life. You lied to me. You're the one who deserves to die." Everyone looked at its face, which had become distorted and ferocious. Disgusted, they took a few steps back. Snowy was still screaming, but before it could curse a few words, the man had already finished it off. It was unwilling to close its eyes and die. Snowy's ending was no different from my previous life. This was my revenge for it in this life. The crowd quickly dispersed, leaving only Snowy lying on the open ground. The zombies nearby smelled the blood and howled as they charged. I had no interest in watching. I went through the tunnel back to the fortress. The heavy hatred in my heart gradually disappeared. From now on, I could finally sleep soundly. If you guys enjoyed watching, please give Sleepless a like and a sub. Thank you everyone for watching the whole video. Don't forget to leave a comment for everyone to read.